Hello, I'm Bronna Francis from KVAC and coming to you from the holler, and we're talking about ripple effects today. The topic is Defiant for teens. When you log on to your on your Ripple Effects site, you can go under resources and find scope and sequence, and you can map out your related topics to help students in these following areas. And just one of the areas I chose today to talk about is Defiant. And it seems to be more and more in our schools that we find kids are defiant. And how do we work with those kids, and what do we do for those kids to make them successful in school, and to ensure that they become successful? And one of the things with this, the kids can use this independently, individually with different topics, or you can use this as group a group lesson or a small group lesson. So we'll go through those and kind of get some ideas on how to use this. You can see on the scope and sequence, there's the topic Defiant. And defiant, concern, antagonizing, defiant behavior characterized by opposing authority, blaming others for mistakes, refusing to participate. And we all know kids that do that. We know adults that do that. But we're going to try to give you some things that you can do with ripple effects to alleviate this problem with students. The description. A certain amount of defiance is a normal part of adolescence, and we all know that. But a pattern of defying adults, especially when tied to blaming others for their mistakes and trying to turn people against each other, is a serious problem that we have to address. And one of the ways that we can address this is through individualized topics from the ripple effects. Some defiant students simply haven't been exposed to positive discipline, and we know that. We know that some kids come from homes uh, that they're not disciplined, and I don't mean that as they're not spanked or they're not what, but they're not taught what is. They're not taught by positive reinforcements, but and I'm not saying all homes. I know better than that, but just some kids may come to us like this. They learn by experimenting and may consider every instruction from an adult a test that is of who is in control. Others may be carrying deeper anger about an underlying issue like abuse. They may feel powerless in abusive situations, and they could transfer their anger and the need to assert control to a safer environment, say your school. Still, others have a related disorder like ADHD or depression, and those need to be addressed for behavior to change. They have to be addressed. A good plan for these students is often to help them gain more control in their lives. Use personal exploration time to encourage these students to find what they think the underlying reason is for their defiant behavior. Help them recognize that they can't always control outside forces. Like none of us can always control outside forces, but they can always control their response, how they respond to things. Combine concentrated skill training in impulse control with training in anger management techniques. It can also be useful to help these students identify a passion, like sports, music, art, or service learning opportunities, in which they can channel some of their potentially destructive energy, and we can turn that into a positive energy with the things that they might want to do. I mean, like we talked about art and music, or I know like some of the kids are doing those entrepreneurships, and that is really a positive learning opportunity for those students. Ripple Effects for Staff has more concrete advice for engaging these students. A small number of defiant students may actually have a conduct disorder that would require their placement in a special learning situation. This software may not be effective for these students. Those students may need more than they may need more than the ripple effects can offer, but it but it surely can be response to intervention using the ripple effects. You could use that for that and set up your baseline or gather some data. The goals of intervention. Um, when we do interventions, we always have to have a goal, what we want to change, what the end to be. Students will understand their preferred learning style, and we do know that that makes a difference. We have to know how our students learn. Identify, celebrate, and enhance their strengths, and that's one of the things we leave out a lot. We focus on the students' weaknesses, but we're not focusing on their strengths. Set a goal that begins to fulfill their promise. Master specific skills for controlling the particular behavior that's getting them in trouble, such as talking back or fighting. And when we do this, we don't want to set 5 or 6 goals for different behaviors. You want to pick a particular behavior that is causing much of the trouble for those students. Begin to take responsibility for their action. That's the goal that you really want your students to begin to say, okay, you are responsible for your actions. Because they do want to play the blame game. A lot of adults like to play the blame game. And make apologies if necessary. Kids can learn to apologize. It's hard for kids to apologize, but that's something that kids can learn and practice. Understand the possible role of family struggles in their behavior. They kind of got to know how their interaction with their family and the struggles that their family have are affecting their behavior at school. Understand the possible role of depression or ADHD in their behavior. There's just a lot of background information that you've got to pull together and data for these kids in order to help them. And a relationship with the teacher, a positive relationship with the teacher, the connectiveness with the teacher, and the respect that they get will make a big difference in the intervention of students with defiant behavior. Because we all know students that get in trouble, and we've said this forever. Some students will get in trouble in 3 out of 4 of their classes, but in the 4th class, they're well behaved and they do what they want to do. I mean, they do their work, and so what is the difference? It's the same child. What's the difference? It's the teacher. It might be the topic. Those are things that you have to look at when you're talking about students that are defiant. A suggested scope and sequence for teens. Strengthening self. This is going to be the first one. They'll go to the topics: strengths, weaknesses, and then passions, their learning style, sports and exercise type, goals, the brain, self-efficiency, and curiosity. Impulse control. Fighting, lying, rebellion, conflict with the teacher, talking back, controlling impulses, cause and effect, empathy, understanding feelings, and perspective taking. Managing feelings, anger, frustration, sadness, depression, self-talk, calming down, and mindfulness. Community skills, respectful of authority, making apologies, values, social, and restitution. Learning challenges, learning disability. They could have a learning disability, ADHD, dyslexia. Those are a few of the learning challenges. Personal issues, depression, an alcoholic parent, an addicted parent, drugs, child abuse, jealousy, neglect. Okay, I want to go back here just a second to scope and sequence for the teens. And when I'm saying scope and sequence, these will be the order that the teens will do their lessons in on the ripple effects. And this one, strengthening self, would be the first one that they will do. And this is all under Defiant. Impulse control would be the next one. Managing feelings would be the next one. And community skills and learning challenges. And then personal issues. So, This is your website for ripplekentucky.org, and you can get on there and you can look at all the different topics. There's over 400 topics, and it's divided between kids and teens, kids 2 to 5 and teens 6 to 12. And today we talked about defiance, a defiant student, and that's within the teens. Um, I'm going to go all the way back to the front just for a second, to the beginning. Okay, when we go here to goals of intervention, uh, these are the things that the students will be doing. This will be the goal, and then you go through the scope and sequence that will most likely reach those goals for students. Okay, that's all for today, and thank you for listening.